Fox used to be the best of the best when it came to NASCAR coverage. For countless seasons, fans enjoyed their energetic lineup of commentators, superb camera work, and overall coverage from pre-race to victory lane. So, what changed? People suddenly can't wait for Fox's portion of the season to be over. So today, I'm going to take a dive into some common fan complaints to answer the question, what happened to NASCAR on Fox? Let's start with probably the single biggest portion of the broadcast that most people immediately notice, the commentators. As previously mentioned, the terrific trio of Mike Joy, Darrell Waltrip, and Larry Mack kept everyone happy for well over a decade. But over the past few seasons, these pieces have been shifted around to create less than desired results. In 2016, Jeff Gordon would take over in the booth, shifting Larry Mack to more of a guest analyst role. It was an understandable move, seeing as how Jeff Gordon is one of the most popular names in motorsports, and well, as much as we all love Larry Mack, he is certainly the least well known of the booth. And while I don't think Jeff Gordon was as bad in the booth as many people let on, there certainly was some of that old school Fox charm missing. The issue is, Larry Mack had such amazing chemistry with Mike and Darrell, and in particular, it seemed like Jeff and Darrell never meshed together all that well. But this would be our new trio until 2019 rolled around, where Darrell Waltrip would finally call it quits. Probably because he was getting too old, but it did seem like Darrell didn't appreciate getting so much negative attention from fans on social media, as some of his newer Darrellisms weren't quite as well received as they used to be. And heading into 2020, Fox would boogity no longer. And as fate would have it, the COVID pandemic happened only a month later. Coincidence? I think not! But instead of opting to replace DW, Fox shrunk to a two-man booth. And they tried their darndest to make Jeff Gordon into their new funny man, but it certainly wasn't his fit. And so Fox would nab Clint Bowyer at the end of his driving career heading into 2021 as the new resident funny man. And at the time, this seemed like a fantastic decision. Clint was well liked among most fans, he embodied some of that good old boy NASCAR energy, and while Fox running Clint's decade-old feud with Jeff Gordon into the ground got a bit tiresome, they at least got a few funny bits out of it. And for once, it seemed like Jeff Gordon had a co-worker in the booth that he could actually vibe with. And as a result, Fox's 2021 booth actually felt somewhat decent for the first time in a while. But it was incredibly short-lived, as Jeff Gordon would leave at season's end for a bigger role at Hendrick Motorsports, and, well, I can't say I really blame him for that. And this is where Fox would begin with the dreaded rotating booth, which honestly feels more like a game of Russian roulette with Danica Patrick being in the lineup. Oh God! But to be fair, there are a few standouts among this crowd. Jamie McMurray is a really good analyst, and hearing Larry Mack again a couple times this year is enough to make a grown man cry tears of joy. But man, when the guest commentators are bad, they're bad. But sometimes it's hard to lump all the blame on them, especially when the other two aren't pulling their weight like they used to. Clint Bowyer didn't end up being the next coming of Darrell Waltrip as everybody had hoped, and instead just repeats a few of the same Bowyerisms every week that make little to no sense to anybody not from Kansas. Actually, I'm not even sure if people from Kansas understand him. I don't know, something about holding a pretty wheel and just what the doctor ordered, and geez, Mike, we could really use a caution right now, I'm getting kinda bored. And I think I just used about half of Clint Bowyer's dialogue options. Now, as for Mike Joy, I know a lot of fans want to see him gone, and he has definitely shown his age more than a few times these last couple years. With some uncharacteristic goofs, and sometimes he just sounds like he's commentating bingo at the old folks' home rather than a NASCAR race.
Oh, crap.
But if you ask me, he's still the best we got. I think some people really just didn't like him calling out the keyboard warriors in the broadcast this year, but honestly, I found it kind of funny. People say get rid of Mike and get Alan Bestwick. My brothers in Christ, they didn't even find a full-time replacement for Vince Welch in trucks. Do you think they're really gonna hire Alan Bestwick when they could just make Adam Alexander commentate all 3 series for the same salary? And no disrespect to Double A, he's definitely improved, but Mike Joy is a living legend, and replacing him won't be the easy task that some people think it will be. But yes, this booth is severely lacking energy right now, and I don't know, but I just don't see Kevin Harvick being the guy who fixes that problem next year. Don't get me wrong, he's a great analyst, but he don't got that Larry Mack dog in him, if you know what I'm saying. Honestly, just give me 2 Big Macs for the side of Mike and I'll be happy with that, but odds are that's probably never happening. But even with the lack of energy in the booth, Fox still has a reputation as the fun-loving, family-oriented network for NASCAR. So how do they keep that reputation up? With poorly drawn cartoons of the drivers. Okay, I know this is more of a top-of-Fox issue than a NASCAR-specific issue, as they do it for other sports like the NFL as well, but man, it just gives off the vibe that they really don't take the sport seriously. It's the same thing as when they introduced the Digger Cam and gave him his own pre-race cartoon. Yeah, appealing to children is nice and all, but this is a sport. Present it in a serious manner, please. And this is the department where NBC is especially crushing them. Yes, NBC naturally has access to the more serious part of the season with the playoffs and whatnot, but their entire team and production just feels like it has more respect for the sport of auto racing than Fox does. You can appeal to a younger fan base, God knows NASCAR needs it, while still keeping a production that looks and feels professional. And the cartoons are not doing them any favors. And neither are those random shots of kids they do between every camera transition. What's the deal with that? Which, hey, speaking of which, what the heck happened to the camera work? Fox's camera work used to be envied by every other network, and now it just feels like a hot mess. How many times have you heard the commentators discussing an important battle shaping up on the racetrack or reacting to a crash that just happened, and it takes like 30 seconds for the camera to actually cut to it? It feels like more and more of a common occurrence. Listen to this clip of Kevin Harvick calling out the production team mid-broadcast for not showing an important race for the lead between Josh Berry and Justin Allgaier at last year's Charlotte Xfinity race.
Down the backstretch, you guys can't see it right now, but he just took the lead when this whole thing cycles out. Justin Allgaier just passed the 8, but getting stuck in the lap traffic.
Great battle for between the 8 and the 7. Switching back and forth.
Maybe Kevin Harvick will be the answer to some of Fox's problems. Another issue that not as many people bring up, but is still very important to diehard race fans, is the lack of coverage at the track before and after the race. NASCAR race day is now almost entirely in the big CGI Fox studio. Very rarely do they do any of the pre-race shows at the actual track. Maybe you get the occasional driver interview and of course Michael Waltrip's grid walk, but where's Trackside Live? Where's the Hollywood Hotel? Fox used to have legions of colorful characters running all these different shows at the racetrack that just straight up don't exist anymore. Kenny Wallace, John Roberts, Jimmy Spencer, where have they all gone? And when a race is over, more often than not, it feels like Fox can't wait to get off the air. They interview the first place driver, second place driver, third place if you're lucky, or Chase Elliott who finished 17th, and that's all you're gonna get. Say what you will about NBC moving their post-race coverage to Peacock most of the time, but heck, at least they have post-race coverage. And sure, there's a lot of other issues too. I could have made this whole video about just the Truck Series coverage alone and how bad that's been over the last few years. And there's stuff like the abundance of races that happen on FS1 now instead of Big Fox, or the amount of commercials they cut to, especially during big races like the Daytona 500, but those are more business things that it's really hard to blame them for. At the end of the day, Fox and NASCAR are businesses and they have to get the bills paid one way or another, so that stuff doesn't bug me as much. If you attack Mike Joy on Twitter for there being one Whopper commercial too many at Daytona, then you're the jerk here, not him for calling out the keyboard warriors. Yes, the commercials do feel more obnoxious and in your face on Fox than they do on NBC, but that's just something the network and NASCAR are going to have to work out on their next TV deal. I won't pretend to be an expert and say I know the ins and outs of that sort of thing. So what are some of your biggest gripes with NASCAR on Fox? Do you think that some of these things can realistically be fixed soon? Let me know in the comments down below, but don't forget to leave a like in this video, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more great NASCAR content.